Allegations of stolen cash, gold bars, and other recovered assets have triggered public backlash and internal investigations. What's your reading of this scandal rocking the anti-graft agency, PK?
I am very much convinced that this is not particularly new. This had been going on in the EFCC for years. Relooting of loots is not exactly new to not just the EFCC. A lot of Nigerian agencies, police, ICPC, we know that these things happen. And I'm saying again that it had been happening in the EFCC for years. They just happen to have a chairman now who is carrying through some level of cleanup of the agency. The kind of stories we are reading now about EFCC staff being arrested, put in custody for stealing, for tampering with exhibits, for outright theft of items in their care had been happening before now. But the current chairman had long complained, just shortly after he became the EFCC chairman, he complained that the EFCC is full of crooked individuals who continue to compromise investigations after apparently taking money from corrupt people being investigated by the EFCC. But if they left it at that, if they left it at simply compromising investigations and putting the efforts of their hardworking colleagues in jeopardy, maybe a lot of us will not be bothered. But they've now taken this a step further by stealing outright items kept in the exhibit room, gold bars, jewelry, foreign exchange, as much as $400,000 is believed to be missing. Gold bars, even property kept in their care, are now reported to be stolen. And these things are happening with a disturbing regularity. Look at the incident in Kaduna, where a certain EFCC staff was believed to have stolen $30,000. Remember that even the accusation made by Idris Okuneye, alias Bobrisky, against the EFCC, claiming that the EFCC officials collected 15 million naira from him. We've not had the last of that. And this is happening. Just shortly after the chairman announced the the fact that 10 of his officers were being investigated, and his announcement of the fact that 27 officers were dismissed for misconduct and fraudulent practices in the year 2024. We are now reading about EFCC officers disappearing with seized gold bars valued at 1 billion naira, jewelry, and the sum of 400,000, and then the sum of $400,000, and then the sum of $30,000. All of this point to the fact that there is a lack of integrity, a lack of accountable conduct within the EFCC itself. I remember saying on Journalist Hangout that there is a need for the current EFCC chairman to get the presidential mandate to thoroughly clean up the agency, clean up the commission, because it is clear that there are so many people within the EFCC who have no business being there in the first place. And the EFCC has no right to tamper with evidence or tamper with evidence, exhibits in their care. The place where you keep exhibits like cash, especially foreign exchange and other things, should not be so easy for all comers to access. There has to be mechanism put in place to ensure that undesirable elements within the EFCC do not have easy access to those places. I've had people say, oh, these things are happening because of poor salary and that we live in difficult times. It is absolute rubbish. There should be no reason in the world for operatives of EFCC to have unfettered access to the exhibit room. There has to be mechanism put in place whereby 2 or 3 persons get to know anytime someone wants to go into that exhibit room, so that it is the items there are then accounted for, and one can be sure that nobody will take away something from there. The question, Ibrahim, is these items were seized from individuals, and those cases are usually taken before courts of law. If a person from whom you got this item seized eventually goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court orders the EFCC to return all of the items they seized from him, and we've had such judgments in the past, what will they do when their own operatives have stolen those items? Tell me, what will they do? Where will they find the gold bar stolen to return to that individual? Where will they find, for example, $400,000 returned to return to the person, the original owner, after the person has successfully secured an order of the Supreme Court that those items should be returned to him? So those who have chosen to be careless with items kept in their care, they do not know the implications of what they are doing. They do not know the implication, because you may eventually lose that matter. When you lose the case, you lose the case. The court will order that you should return what you have taken from the suspect. What do you then do? Have we not seen cases of courts ordering that what was seized from people should be returned to them? For example, if the FCC didn't follow due process in seizing those items, the court will rule that they should be returned to them. As we speak, 10 officers of the FCC are answering questions over the disappearance of operational items in their care.
Yeah.
So, how much longer are we going to see these negative developments unravel before our eyes?
Yeah.
How much longer are we going to see these things happening? An agency of government that is saddled with fighting corruption is now looking like the home for not just the corrupt, but the most extremely crooked. Because anyone who has the guts to steal gold bars straight from the exhibit room of Efcc is not better than a common criminal. The safety of things kept in the Efcc custody is now clearly compromised. Ordinarily, I would expect that the Efcc, given the embarrassing theft of these items, would begin to keep such things in bank vaults. If the Efcc cannot guarantee the safety of foreign currency, the safety of dollars and other valuable items that it has seized, that the courts have mandated it to keep custody of, then they need to begin to keep those things in bank vaults.
That's right.
I believe that that is the right thing to do. You have to keep those things, deposit them in the vaults of banks. Because the stories that we are hearing in the last few weeks suggest that this will get worse. Because the Efcc announced that, the Efcc chairman announced that his officers were being investigated, some have been dismissed, some have been questioned. And then we had a certain Efcc official, we had that a certain Efcc official just this Wednesday stole $30,000 from his office in Kaduna. It's a really, really depressing situation, but it is not a situation beyond remedy.
That's right.
The agency has to find a way to protect cash and other valuables in its custody. And the cleanup of the EFCC has to go on. There has to be an organizational diagnosis that will lead to the exit of people who have been helping themselves to valuable items kept in their custody. These lapses reflect badly on the EFCC. And look, Nigerians will stop believing in these anti-corruption agencies if these kind of things continue. Even whistleblowers will not feel the need to continue to provide information, because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you provided information and items seized from these people will eventually be relooted by EFCC officials. So who will want to give them information? The perception of that Nigerians have of the agency will be terrible, and the agency will diminish itself in the eyes of Nigerians if it does not begin to thoroughly cleanse itself of these black legs who are putting the agency to shame. There is clearly very weak control mechanism within the FCC, and there's a need for an in-house cleaning of all those people. I'll repeat, there's a need for in-house cleanup of all the negative people in the FCC who are worse than aninis, who are worse than common thieves, who are stealing items kept in the care of the agency. If this is not done,
absolutely,
then we are certainly not going to go far. And I also think that in the case of security outfits, in the case of organizations like the EFCC that are also involved in prosecuting corruption cases, there has to be background checks, must be constant. I do not think that it is right to simply do background check when you want to employ people. As we have seen now, some will escape that background check. It may not be thorough when some of them are coming into the agency. But if it is sustained and if it is not made a one-off background check, we will eventually discover those criminals masquerading as EFCC officials. So I will propose that background checks are consistent. Even when people have joined an organization like the EFCC, the background checks should still continue so that you then discover the kind of people they are, the kind of companies they keep, the kind of family members they have, the kind of wives that they even have. This is the way that I think that
Right.
we will achieve our aim
That's
of
right.
having a cleaner years.
That's right. Let me take one or two comments. Okay, Taiwo says, very good evening, BQ and Ibrahim. Thank you. Justified says, security agencies must be paid good salaries. You can't put a hungry man in the kitchen and expect him not to steal. Taiwo said, I think the best way for the EFCC chairman is to name those arrested officers, or the chairman should save his name and resign honorably. Banji Okesoto says the confiscated items after due process shouldn't be left idle. Instead, they should be redirected to meet pressing needs in society. It is imperative that these items be immediately repurposed. Yeah, keep sending your comments so we can take them, or your questions so we can take them. Yeah, BK, you already answered the question as to, because managing recovered assets transparently is a very complex process. And then we've actually spoken to how they should probably keep these assets, these stolen items, recovered items. But public confidence in anti-corruption efforts is, waning, just as you alluded. Even though the
Yes.
EFCC leadership claims addressing the issues internally, how effective are the EFCC's recent efforts to investigate and sanction corrupt staff? How effective has it been?
Oh, they are just starting, so we are watching because people want to see where it all ends. The problem with Nigeria is when these things are announced, it's usually the last time we hear about it. We don't hear about people going to jail, as frequently as we hear of the crimes that they committed. What will actually make people to sit up or to discourage people is punishing bad behavior. I've always said that in Nigeria, we do not punish bad behavior enough. I would like to see these EFCC officials go to jail. I would like to see the media report their cases in court right up to the time that they are sent to jail. This is usually not what happens. The cases are brought against undesirable elements in our country. After the first day, we don't hear anything again. Such cases are then settled out of court and treated like a family matter. We will never defeat corruption if we continue to treat corruption cases as family matters. We must be prepared to put people in jail. The FCC is a disgrace as it is today. And you got to question how some people even get into the EFCC in the first place. The recruitment module of the FCC has to be investigated. It has to be interrogated, and they need something much better. Otherwise, we will continue to put Oyenusis, the Anenis, we will continue to put them in the EFCC. And when you do that, all you should expect to happen is what we are reading now. Senior people. The matter of even theft of exhibit cash in foreign exchange, it even went viral. Can you imagine them arguing among themselves? It's an unbearable shame. I never expected this. And it shows that there's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to cleanse that agency of the thoroughly useless individuals who are there only because of what they can steal. If those places are not safe, go and keep those items in the bank vaults. We've heard of even stolen, recovered items being auctioned and all that. These things happen. Auctioned without transparency. There has to be transparency. There has to be accountability. And if the Efcc cannot guarantee accountability in the conduct of its staff, in the management of items seized from people because it is suspected that they are proceeds of crime, then we're in trouble. We don't have an anti-corruption agency. The Efcc must be transparent enough that people will be certain that whatever they seize from suspects in corruption cases will not end up being looted by the people saddled with the job of keeping those things safe.
That's right. Right. So let me take one or two comments again before I take my question. Felix Akiodi says EFCC should have an independent watchdog made up of CSOs to oversee the agency. Banji said the chairman is doing a yeoman's job. His call for resignation is unnecessary. Shak Owolabi says, why not keep valuable monies in the custody of the CBN? Then Taiwa Odulade says, yes, BKO has always talked about punishing bad behaviors. It has to happen if we want to show that we are serious. But then the question I'd like to ask you is, some insiders argue that the EFCC is underfunded and overstretched. And the question is, could the lack of this adequate funding and manpower contribute to the EFCC's internal corruption issues, do you think? Because based on one of the comments that I read earlier, where it said that you can't put a hungry man in the kitchen and then you expect your food to be safe.
Oh, no, theft of exhibit materials and even operational materials has nothing to do with poor funding of the FCC. Poor funding reflects in various ways. Okay, maybe officers need training. Some of those trainings are supposed to be abroad, but because they are not sufficiently funded, they can't even find the money to go on such statutory, such necessary trainings. Maybe because it's underfunded, for example, it cannot recruit as many people that it would want recruited because of budget encumbrances and all that. But the theft of exhibit materials from the exhibit rooms of the EFCC by individuals, you cannot say that is the result of the underfunding of the agency. No, that doesn't add up. That is the result of greed on the part of such operatives. It can only be the result of greed and the fact that some people have exploited the weak control mechanisms within the organizations. So that has nothing to do with poor funding of the EFCC.
But then, if you look at now solving the issues within the EFCC, because the EFCC operates within a legal and institutional framework that may be outdated. So, what reforms do you think are needed in Nigeria's anti-corruption laws to ensure that the EFCC and the like, ICPC, etc., is more transparent and accountable?
Yeah, there is need for reform. There is need for modernization of its approach. There is need for increased use of technology to help it crack corruption cases, to help it in the investigation of corruption cases. There is the need for greater transparency. I will always demand for this. And I think also that there is the need for more training and retraining to bring the EFCC up to the standard of organizations that are similar to it across the world. They need to be abreast of the processes of the FBI, for example. How do they do their things? How do they investigate people? How do they achieve their aims? There's a need for EFCC to partner with some of these so similar agencies across the world so that they can have ideas transferred to them, so that they can be able to imbibe some of the ideas that have been very helpful, in the growth and development of those organizations. I know that at the beginning, EFCC had partners, that helped train some of his staff. Some of the earliest staff of the EFCC were well trained, and they had the privilege of partnership with foreign agencies similar to it. But the constant interference from politicians dissuaded some of these foreign agencies from working with the EFCC. Because if you turn the EFCC into your political tool, foreign partners will not feel the need to get their hands soiled trying to work with the EFCC and turning it into a much better anti-corruption agency. So a lot of things need to change. A good security operative is a product of good training. And these trainings don't come cheap. So these trainings you do abroad. I think that EFCC will benefit from solid training from some of the best organizations similar to it, or known for doing the job that the EFCC has been saddled with. So I think that partnership with international anti-corruption agencies will help it to improve its methods and get it to be much better than it is today. And some of their ways, the ways and means by which they do things should also be modernized. All of that will happen once they cross-fertilize ideas with their foreign partners. I know that they will get better if they continue to have partnership. And you can see even the EFCC has also partnered with the FBI in the past, leading to the arrest of one of Nigeria's most famous advanced field fraudsters. Provided some information, they worked together, and that guy was arrested, the one who was always in Dubai and all that. So there's a need for partnering with this organization, I think, to help the EFCC.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so let me take this comment. It's a case, Steve Akinlade says, it's a case of conspiracy among those entrusted with these items and access to exhibit rule. Items of such worth should be kept under the watch of established institutions with a positive track record. Yeah, very quickly before we go, we just talked about, we've been talking about local government autonomy and the landslide Supreme Court's victory by the federal government against the governors, granting local government financial autonomy and all of that. And then there is also this conversation as to having the EFCC or similar agency across local governments areas in the states, across the states. Monitoring how these monies are spent and all of that. That is one. And second one is that other countries have faced similar challenges that we're facing and developed solutions. Are there global examples of best practices Nigeria can adopt to reform the EFCC and prevent future scandals? That's our final thoughts.
Yes, well, when it comes to what we are talking about, I think we don't need to go abroad to solve this problem. I don't think the EFCC should keep these items. For example, um, when they seize vessels, for example, those vessels will be kept in the custody of the Navy. The Navy will be watching over those
Recovered
those
assets.
seized. Yeah, I don't think the EFCC should keep cash. From what we are seeing, I don't think they have the institutional um, mechanism to stop this kind of embarrassment from happening. And I tell you, this had been on for some time. Look, for example, at the case of the former NNPC GMD. You know, he won his case in court against the FCC, the one who kept money in one small house somewhere in Kaduna State, and a rustic building, and a inserted air conditioner to keep the foreign currencies fresh. That man won his case against the FCC. What if some of the monies that the FCC seized from him got stolen? And the highest court in the land says, look, return his money. We are not convinced that these monies were proceeds of crime. What will they do? So they need to find out, how does the FBI do it when they are in this kind of situation? Because slush money will always be seized. When it gets seized, where do they keep them? I am convinced that they cannot. You cannot trust the EFCC to keep this kind of items. From what we are seeing, and I can tell you that it didn't start today. So, in my view, such should be kept in banks. So they need to understudy some foreign. I'm not saying that we cannot look for a home-sourced solution to some of the problems confronting the FCC, but there's nothing wrong in borrowing ideas. If your methods have not worked in some ways, then you need to be open to fresh ideas about how you can do it better. So that's why I'm suggesting that partnership with foreign organizations involved in the war against corruption will just be good, and the EFCC, their image will improve. There are so many things that they need to change. We want to talk about what is wrong with the EFCC.
Yeah.
Their method of prosecution and why they keep losing the big cases. They have a fantastic record with Yahoo boys and all that, but when it comes to the politically exposed persons who are capable of hiring the best and most influential lawyers in the country, the EFCC doesn't have a good record, and they know it. So a lot has to change. Raiding people at night, I do not believe that it is right. For example, and look at the guy who lost his life the other day. When you raid people and you do not properly introduce yourself, they could open fire on you. So some of their methods need to change. And I hope that under this current leadership of um, the EFCC, we will keep seeing changes and a desire to clean up the organization. They have no choice now. They have no choice now. They have to find the dirty individuals, the black legs in the EFCC. They have to find them and show them the door. They have no choice. We will never win the war against corruption if we continue
Absolutely.
to keep people who are sabotaging investigation, if we continue to keep people who are stealing from the exhibit room of the EFCC. That is my take.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's our show for today's edition of Issues with JIDE. Special thanks to you, Babaji Dekola, for those insightful analysis as always. Even though you are currently listening to party and to be in solidarity with colleague Festus Alabi, who is getting married today, you still make that time to analyze what is happening in Nigeria, which is in line with your passion. Thank you so much, people.
Thank you, Ibrahim. God bless you. You are Festus's senior, having got married before him. I know he's older than you, but you are a senior in the marriage confraternity. So,
Absolutely.
but while you are also my junior in the marriage confraternity, but marriage is a beautiful thing. I disagree with those who say marriage is a scam, and we wish Festus a happy matrimony.
That's right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, audience, for keeping our company at every edition. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at TVC News NG, also at Ibrahim_Shita. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Ibrahim Shita. See you again next edition. Bye for now.